Gotcha. So today I'm going to give a little background, but then we're really going to talk about websites and clarity of purpose. What's the purpose, behind these things? Transparency and trust, engagement and action, content strategy, and some key takeaways. We have revised this a couple of times, so won't see a slide that says key takeaways, but we do want to talk about a couple of other things. But you all remember Commissioner Hines, probably, maybe you remember her remarks from the TA Institute back in May. And she does talk, one of her priorities is communications. And if you've visited the Administration for Community Living website, you will see there has been some changes. And so she is starting to influence that agency website. More importantly, she does want eventually, it's not happening right now, but she wants to connect you all's websites to the agency's website. So she is through OIDD and AOD, they really are asking for us to do some awareness and bring some things to your attention. Amy, do we need to say something about Spanish language interpretation? Sorry, I just blew past that.
Yeah, so we do have Spanish language interpretation available. Um, Carmen and Cynthia are here interpreting for us today. If you need the Spanish language interpretation, at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you probably have to hit the More button with three dots and hit Interpretation, and then you can navigate to the Spanish channel and hear everything in Spanish. And then also chat is available, and captions are available. And if you have any questions, put things in the chat. We're gonna not try not to move too fast because we do have interpreters, but we are gonna move through this relatively fast, and then try to have some time for discussion a little bit along the way as well.
Thanks. Yes, our interpreters we have for 1 hour, so we do want to move through and be respectful of their time. Okay, so let's get going. So just so you know where we're coming from, we do understand that some of your websites are governed by your designated state agency, or you have specific state and territory rules and procedures. So when we first announced this opportunity, I got a lot of comments like, we can't control what's up there. Well, we know that probably you've got people hosting your website. So we're really going to focus on content and engagement rather than design, okay? But some design information is going to be referenced. But to address some of those concerns that the DSA won't let the council control content, we do have a memorandum of understanding strategy that might be helpful for councils if you're running into those roadblocks. So we'll get to it, and we do understand it. But just as an introduction, these websites are really more than just your ability to provide information. The administration really considers them a public-facing communication hub for your council. And so it's a way for you to show transparency, accessibility, and trust. And primarily, we just really want councils to be positioned to make it really clear who you are, what you do, and how people can engage in your work. And of course, all of this requires some balance, and it needs to be useful. We don't do all of this work if it's not useful to people. So we do want it to be useful, and we want it to be accessible. So So a lot of DD Council websites, and I think we've communicated with you all before that the administration, different people in the administration do visit your websites. And so some of the more common things that are viewed and things that you want to avoid is really putting up a lot of that federal language to explain the purpose of the council. You know, a lot of sometimes we want to not mess up. So we go to the law and we put all the legal federal language in there rather than plain language. So that's something that we see. Sometimes great information, really important information, is buried inside a PDF file, and rather than just put onto the page itself. What we I've looked at everybody's website, and it is interesting. What do you actually do? Sometimes that's missing. Or it's buried in the website. It's not clear, or the explanation of the council is not clear. So we're going to look at at a really clear example in just a minute. If you've got a place on your website for news and events, if those are outdated, or things are up there, it not relevant to current events, it does make the council look inactive. So you do want to take a little bit of care. And I know that it is on somebody's to-do list, but you do have to take some care to just bring it up to date. Sometimes council websites, the accessibility is treated as an afterthought rather than part of the initial design. But I will say sometimes that happens when someone else is hosting your website, and they may not have that accessibility mindset. And then navigation, or how you organize your website. Sometimes, it's just a problem to avoid. Think about it in terms of user needs rather than your internal structure. So, how somebody needs to use the information on your website.
So let's start by talking about clarity of purpose. Um, the council, you're a national network, but you're made up of individual councils. We need for the public to have a really clear understanding of what the council is, who the council serves, and what the council does. So within a few seconds of landing on the homepage for your council's website, a visitor should be able to easily understand these things. A tip, of course, is to avoid agency jargon. You want to use as much plain language as you can, but especially on your homepage where you're really introducing people to the council. This is where people are most frequently going to land for the first time. And you want for them to have easy to understand language about what it is that you do and what the council, who the council serves. So a simple message platform features 4 questions. And you want to consider these as you create your messaging: what you do, how you do it, why does it matter, and then why would anyone care? And when you're crafting your messages, you really kind of want to think about those 4 things. This is a simple blueprint for a DD Council homepage. Of course, we're using examples and suggested language. You don't have to use any of these, but a plain language headline that just simply says that you're improving the lives of people with developmental disabilities in your state or territory. Using a 1-sentence description of what it is that your council does. So we fund programs, we support advocacy, and help shape policies so people with DD can live, work, and participate fully in their communities. And then consider like maybe trimming down how many buttons you have on your homepage, and maybe just trim it down to 2 or 3 primary buttons. And you could center those around like what we do, find resources, or get involved. If your homepage is very vague or if it's very jargon heavy, the whole site struggles. Because again, this is where most people are seeing council information for the first time. Um, so this is an example of how to show what you do with some easy to understand language. Um, so you might consider using like 3 to 4 simple blocks and talk about we fund projects and what that means. We support self-advocacy. We influence policy. We share information. And then you could definitely include a link to a deeper page that has more information about all of these topics. But just one sentence descriptions of what each of these things means. We're going to look at a couple of examples of this from some councils. This is from the Pennsylvania Council. This is on their homepage. They have a good who we are statement that really describes the council well. And then they show what we do. That section, that's the council makes a better future by, that is what they do. So they have a really good example of being really clear about who we are and what we do.
And this is important because the who we are, the Pennsylvania's description is, it really explains the council. It just doesn't make the assumption that people know what the council is. It's that a group of people with disabilities, family members, advocate, and state department representatives who work to create favorable conditions for people with developmental disabilities and their families in the Commonwealth. And that leaves the person with a pretty clear description. I know sometimes we have a tendency to just put a who we are button at the top. And if you want to know more, you can just drop the box down. But that requires somebody to click. So think about it in a way. And then they have a link here, read how we work. And so they're going to be, if you click the link, you're going to see, council meetings, council members, all of the details after that. Amy?
So another example that we have to show you is this is from the Virginia Council's website. They use data to help reinforce their what they do information, which is a really awesome way to do it, especially as we spend so much time talking about impacts. They have included on their website some of their impactful information about policy that they have policies that they've supported to help people with disabilities and their families, the amount of grant dollars spent on projects, and then how many people they have trained. And they're tracking this over the 5-year plan. So it started October of 2021, and they've run it through. So you can, it's a good snapshot of, from the beginning of the 5-year state plan to now. Here is some of the data that supports what we're doing.
And they just updated with this data. So it is a continual update. So actually a month ago when I pulled this down, it was different. And then I reached out to the council and said, hey, do you mind? We want to showcase that. And they were like, oh, go grab the new stuff. So, these are really, moving. It just continually changes. So that's pretty cool. Can we go back one slide and open it up? Do other people have suggestions or anything around the clarity of purpose that you might want to share with everyone?
Hi, this is David from California Council.
David?
I think back to the like Pennsylvania page, I'm not even going to it, but I think just the way that Pennsylvania described how to work to create favorable conditions for people with developmental disabilities in their Commonwealth. Like I think we've recently started referring to our work in that way. we are working towards making California the best place for people with disabilities and their families. And I think that like just boiling it down to kind of like that, if folks ask or want to dive deeper, those are the specific ways down below. But I think we are trying to get into that habit as well. So I love that you use this example.
Thanks. I loved this. Like I said, I looked at a lot of websites and it was pretty easy to understand. And I was thinking if I were just the next door neighbor who didn't know anything, then I'd say, oh, okay. Oh, that's what you do. So thank you for those comments. Okay, let's talk about transparency and trust. Transparency and trust, it really boils down to just a few things. This is where you have the opportunity to really talk about really what you do. And so, four of the major things, and remember, we always talk about protecting the public trust. You're a public body, and people need to know what kind of work you're doing, and on their behalf, because you're working on behalf of the citizens of the state or territory. So, some ways you can do that on a website is sharing council members and staff bios. Um, you know, uh, and we've got a couple of examples of that. Posting your meeting schedules, the meeting agendas, and minutes from past meetings. Most of you are having to abide by open meeting laws anyway, and so some of this is naturally required. So it makes it, when you can post it on the website, it's pretty great. Also, when the federal leadership is visiting your state or territory, they often visit your website and they want to, be able to, in a snapshot, see what in a meeting minute, what's the council working on? What are they discussing? What kinds of things have they got going on? And it's an easy place for them to get that information as well. It's a great place to show the state plan. A lot of you, almost everybody, and I can't say 100% of what I looked at, but everybody pretty much puts state plan stuff. Not always on the progress updates. So think about how you can show progress. If you do that through a standard report during a council meeting, it's a wonderful place under meeting agendas and materials that you can put that up there. And same thing with budget or funding summaries. It's a great place to be able to, share that information with the public. The whole point of this is to really show the public that the council is accountable and you're active. So let's look at a couple of examples. So this is the Wisconsin board, this Wisconsin DD Council, and they actually, so this is just the first three people on their council. They don't have just three people, but like here's the chair, the vice chair, and then another member. And they have their picture and they tell where they're from, and then they have a snippet of, what their role is on the council, what they're involved in, and they have a quote. So this is, a higher level. I know California, I looked at yours, you have a great member bio section as well, so that the public knows who is representing them, and if somebody's close to them. Let's see, what else do we have on this? Oh, Iowa. Okay, Iowa does a bang up job on sharing their meeting materials, meeting information, and then they also include on this how to be a member. So that's an engagement strategy, but this is just a snapshot of their May meeting. They did have their July stuff, but a lot of it hadn't, it was pending. It was just, but these are things that they actually shared. And they have meeting minutes attached for, prior meetings. So you'll see that they included everything, even the menu for the day. So you have public policy committee meetings, you've got their budget stuff is great. If you all are looking for ways to present the budget, check this out. They've also got state plan, work plan progress. That is an excellent thing. They provide that to their council so the public can see it. But all of this is current. So it's pretty important that you all keep your agendas current, your meeting minutes current. There are times that when you pop onto a council website, there might not be anything for the past 2 years, and the things that are posted are from 2024. So again, you're trying to show people that you're active, you're accountable. So keeping this stuff up to date, I know it requires assigning it to somebody. And I know it should be made available to the public. So anyway, what else do we have on this one, Amy? Is that it? Okay.
That's it.
So and I know sometimes we get squirmish about posting our stuff to the websites, but in the spirit of transparency and trust, you want to do it. Is this one mine?
It is.
Oh boy. Okay. So accessibility, it's not optional. It is required because you all have federal funds. And so, and it does make you more credible if you have an accessible website. And so the expectation is that you will have full WCAG compliance, things like a screen reader friendly, you've got the proper contrast, you've got keyboard navigation tools on there, and that it is in fairly easy to read language here. So, sometimes we call it plain language, sometimes we call it easy read, but really making it accessible for all types of people. If you've got people who speak multiple languages in your state or territory, and I can't think of one that doesn't have language needs, make sure that you have options for multiple languages. Videos, if you've got videos on your website, make sure that there's some captions embedded on those and transcripts available, and that there's some consistent, predictable navigation. So if your site is not accessible to people with disabilities, it does undermine what your mission is, what you're standing for. So a lot of you have asked us about where do we go? Are you going to tell us all about 508 compliance? Well, we're not qualified to have that discussion. However, there is an agency called the U.S. Access Board, and I've provided you this website down below. You can get an account. I have an account with them. Easy to get. You get all their training notifications. You can stay up to date. They have an entire 508 best practices webinar series and archived training. So they are the board. They're a independent federal agency, and they develop all the accessibility guidelines and standards. So not surprising that they're also in charge of providing technical assistance on 508. So can get a lot of information here. And we're also going to talk about this memorandum of understanding. So if you've got an agency that's hosting your website, make sure that they understand that your piece of this website is subject to 508 compliance. So because of your federal dollars.
All right. Most council websites have some sort of an engagement opportunity for people. So an area where you can sign up for news or listservs or email notices of events. So you want to make sure that your contact options are very easy to find. And if you are sharing news, if you have a section of your website that is about like news and events, you want to make sure that that section is current, that it has your current events, your upcoming events up there, that the news is current. Because again, otherwise, if you don't have things that are up to date, it does look like you're not very active, and that can erode credibility.
And I will say, you do want to make sure that your website has some analytics, some data, so that you can see. For example, the ITAC website, we look at analytics twice a month. We want to know how many times people are clicking to register for a an event. um, what are the click-throughs on an like a mailing list newsletter to our website, to see if it's effective. Is this an effective way to communicate? Are people using your website? Are people using the information in a mailing list? So listen, if me and Amy can do it, y'all got this. You're way more skilled than we ever thought about being. So at the bare minimum, you want to know what's happening, and where people are using your website.
This is an example, again, from the Pennsylvania Council of their news and events section. You'll see here that they have news, they have events, they have links to be able to participate in some of the upcoming events. And then at the bottom, they have a mailing list sign up opportunity. So they have it, very prominently displayed that you can be aware of what's happening in real time if you join their mailing list. So another good example of a good news and events section. Cheryl?
Okay, content strategy. So, a lot of times when we think about websites, we're thinking about the bells and whistles and all of the cool things a website can do. Well, yeah, but let's think about what's going to go on it, what our content is. And so, some of the suggestions have been really do a very short summary first and then provide a link for deeper detail. Easy to do. You want to avoid really those long documents. PDFs is the primary way people post all of their stuff. But think about the short summaries, not really the PDF. Like, if I want to read your state plan and I want to read it in full, okie doke, that's going to be a long PDF. Is there a way to make that more available to people? You could use frequently asked questions format for common questions. You could, whatever the most common questions that you get, it's probably an easy thing to poll your staff and say, what do people ask you the most? And again, keeping that content updated. Oh boy, I cannot tell you how frustrating outdated information is. It's almost worse than missing information, because if it's so dated and nobody can figure out what you're doing now, it becomes a real barrier to people wanting to engage. So let's look at a couple of things. So this is the Oregon DD Council website. There's a couple of cool things on this that I want you the reason I highlighted this is because it provides that short summary with read more here, read more here, read more here. It does tell them, learn about our public policy work. It tells them what they do. It provides, here's a little snapshot of a resource, but then there's more. We have more resources on another page. So it does give the user a sense of, oh, okay, I can click there. I can see that. The other thing on their website, and lots of you have this, they have, you see that orange bar at the top, click to open accessibility and translation tool. So this is their accessibility. And so you can, and once you click that, if you visit their website, you click that, you'll have a myriad of options available to you. Another, let's see, do I have another one on this one, Amy? Another example?
No, this is the only screenshot.
Okay, gotcha.
So let's talk a little bit about the visual look of your website. Visually, you want for your website to feel human, and representative of the people in your state that you are working for, which are people with developmental disabilities and their families, instead of feeling very bureaucratic. So you achieve a more human and representative look or feel when you have photos of real people, not just the stock only imagery. And make sure if you're using photos of real people that you have their permission first, of course, to use their photo on your website. And then you also want to have inclusive representation. So across disability, across race, across age, just making sure that you've got a good representation of people, and not just, you know, the same people. You don't want the same image of a person again and again all across your website. And then also a clean, uncluttered layout with strong headings, a really clean and uncluttered look to your website is very helpful for people navigating your website. It just makes it easier for people to feel like they can understand what it is that you're trying to show them. So a clean, uncluttered layout is helpful as well. This is from the Louisiana Council, and they're a really great example of pairing human feel and an uncluttered layout, with an engagement call. You'll see they have the Join Our Network button there, but they've done a lot of work on their website and have really improved it greatly.
The cool thing, yeah, the cool thing on this one is that you see the pause button down there. When you visit their website, the pictures change. So it's not the same. It like this is a young man, there will be another lady. So check it out. It's cool.
This is Oregon's website again. They have a great example. These are video stories that they have done of people with DD in their state. And so again, very representative of people within their state that they are working to help. And then if you want to see some other great examples, we don't have screenshots of them, but CNMI, the Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, is another great example of their website. They've got videos as well, and they provide captioning in a wide range of languages for their videos, which is really cool. And then something else to consider for your website is audience pathways. When you are thinking about how you are going to organize your website, one potential way to do it is to think about audience pathway navigation. So instead of one size fits all, you organize content for key groups. So you might have content for people with disabilities, one for family members, advocates, providers, partners, policymakers. And so if you're thinking about a redesign, you might want to think about redesigning in this way. This is good because each key group can quickly find what's relevant to them. So it is a good way to help people navigate your website and find things that might just be important to them, as opposed to having to navigate through everything that you have on a topic. One thing that I will say is we were not able to find any councils who have their websites organized this way. But ITAC's website is at least partially organized this way. On our homepage, we have a button for executive directors, one for council members, and I think one for council staff. That is an example of the audience pathway. When you click on one of those buttons, it takes you to resources that have been tagged as resources with interest for those groups. The gut test. When you're thinking about your website, think about, can a first-time visitor to your website in under 60 seconds understand who you are, what you do, and how to get involved? And if you don't think that they can, that's a great place to focus first when you think about making some changes to your website. There are some other things that you can kind of question that might help you as well. Can people find things that are relevant to them, information that's relevant to them in 2 clicks? Like, how many clicks does it take a visitor to get to information that might be relevant to them? Is there anything on your website that is outdated? That's another great place to start. And then, is it readable for someone with cognitive disabilities?
Okay, before we move into this strategy, the memorandum of understanding, really want to open this up. Jamie, you've said Florida has just started to organize your resources by audience pathways. I know it sounds hard to do, but really, and we use the same web designer as Florida DD Council, so they make it very easy. If you have the ability to get a web designer, they can really make the management of the resources very easy for people.
Correct. And a lot of times it's the same resource that you're putting for, but maybe in a different form, an easy read in one place, and in a different format in another, or exactly the same resource in 2 different places, but just somebody wouldn't necessarily think it's for them.
Right. Yeah, and the management of those resources, because you can categorize and tag. So I think it's really has some great potential. Of course, we know it's a big lift. So, and we don't redesign websites on a regular basis, but when it comes up, it's a great thing to consider. Jennifer, you've asked a question. You've got this state agency website that has customization limitations. Absolutely, we understand. Are there other councils? Yes, plenty of them. Here's some suggestions. So let's talk about this memorandum of understanding. So really, because councils need to be able to control your communication, that's the content. So I know a lot of this customization constraint you're not going to be able to solve, but the content should be yours. That they should not, ideally, a designated state agency should not be putting content on your website, taking content off your website without the council being involved. So, although I know you're not going to be able to probably have, recent news or maybe events because there's those limitations, can at least get who we are, what we do, and why we matter. Why should anybody care? So we want you all to consider some language in your memorandum of understanding that really does address the roles and responsibilities for the council's website. And so we do have some sample language. we'll send it to you if you put your name in the chat. It's not been approved by ACL yet, so it's not on our website, but we want to share it with you. We feel like it's just a backlog. This is not revolutionary. It's not dicey language. But Amy, do you want me to share my screen? Or
Yeah, that'd be
okay.
great.
So let me share sample language for a website. Well, you don't want to see that. You want to see the sample language for a website, right? Like this. Can you guys see that or not?
Yep. Can you make it bigger? Maximize.
Yes, absolutely. How are we looking now?
That's good.
Okay. So, some things to consider is, purpose and scope, which is not going to help you a lot. But the website authority. So you want to really assert that you retain the authority over the content, the messaging, and the programmatic information. Okay, so even if you have those constraints like Illinois, Jennifer, you're up in Massachusetts? Yes, okay.
Massachusetts.
Okay, so you do want to retain that authority over it. I know it's not going to be pretty, or it won't be what, you might not get that real people feel because you've got to jump through these hoops. But that content is what the critical thing is. You really need to assert that the council, through staff, is responsible for really developing and approving what goes up there, right? So, the DSA really shouldn't be editing it away of what you're wanting to communicate. And then, they're going to manage it technically if you have a situation like that. But maybe hosting, talk about software platform administration, all the security, the backups, troubleshooting, all of that stuff. But here's the important thing: got to have that item on accessibility. And so you need to really make sure that they understand your stuff. Their stuff should be 508 compliant anyway. But we're not going to make an assumption. Let's not make an assumption. Let's put it in writing that they agree that it will be a 508 compliant website. Content updates, we say keep your content up to date. Well, unless you have an agreement, it becomes whim and fancy sometimes. Maybe you go to the bottom of the list because you don't, they don't know who you are. But this will help, put in there it within 15 days of receipt, within 10 days of receipt, within, what's the what there? What is reasonable to get your updates done? And then access, you guys do need access. But this will be something you have to negotiate. These are just sample words. The security needs to be there. They need to inform you if there's any significant security incidents. Okay. And then, of course, cost. Sometimes your agencies charge for some website hosting, all of the postings, all of the support they do. Sometimes this is part of their in-kind match to the council. But let's just remove all doubt. Nobody's going to be surprised, but like the council doesn't need to be surprised and get a bill for something unless there's prior agreement for that money to be spent. Analytics, I've talked about analytics. There's a lot of reasons you want to use analytics, but it does need to be you have to have somebody make those analytics available to you. Usually it's the person, the administrator of the website, so that might be a state agency person. You might want an item on public records and records retention. For you all federally, it's a 3-year window on records retention, but you might have a state rule or a territory rule that is longer than that. Your federal is 3 years, and that's on our website. So if you need records retention rules to prove something, you can find it through a quick search called records retention. Website changes, an agreement that they're going to consult with you before making major changes to the website structure, navigation, branding, or even how they place the council content. Need to, because you guys determine, is that going to get in the way of the public having access to some information? Continuity and transition. I know we kind of glaze over some of this, but let's not. If the DSA, if you were being reassigned a designated state agency, they're going to have to provide timely transition of your stuff if you go to a different place. So think about it. Think about making sure you've got continuity and transition stuff in your agreement. And then, of course, if you disagree, what are you going to do about it? Let's address it right now. Let's have it. And then branding. Council needs to have the identity. I know we have run into issues, especially when, like Jennifer in Massachusetts, you're going to have the big, Massachusetts gov.gov. I know ohio.gov has their stuff, where the major branding is the government, the state government. And then council is, hopefully you're able to brand or use your logo somewhere, or at least your council name somewhere. But usually when a state mandates some branding, then check it out if you've got a state mandate on state branding. Ohio does, but they also allow for the entity, the council was able to use their logo as well, but they addressed it in their branding policies. So sometimes you do have some latitude there, so don't just think you don't. I would look. And the big one is all about protecting the council communications and policy independence. And so, you want to remove all doubt. This is not about getting a programmatic approval from the designated state agency, but we do want you all to have some protection that you are able to be that independent advocate for people with developmental disabilities and their families. Now, I'm not saying that this is the magic bullet to fix everything, but it may open some conversation where you could have some additional, they understand a little bit more. You're not, again, we're not the same as everybody else. So we need to have ability to do some things and some communications with the people we serve. So anyway, we will make that available to you all anytime you want. Let's see, let me stop my share. So if you can just put your name in the chat, we will shoot it out to you quickly. And then once we get it through ACL approval, we'll post it on our website with this information here so that you have it. So with our last 11 minutes, let's talk, let's chat. Let's hear what are you guys' biggest concerns? What's worked for you? What's rolling around in your head?
Hey, Cheryl, I got a
Hey,
question.
Johnny. Mhm.
Hey, and maybe you talked about this earlier. When the commissioner says that she wants to link all council websites to the ACL website or have it flow through there, like, what does that mean, or what would that look like? Or
I
have you
mean, I'm
already?
thinking that it would be like a national map, and you click on the state you're interested in, and it takes you over to, I don't know what it would look like, to be honest with you, or a
Okay,
listing of, how they list, they already list you all. I don't know exactly, and maybe Amy, you could look real quick, but I do believe they list all of the council. Where councils are located. So it could be as simple as putting your website link there. And if anybody visits the ACL website, that would be an easy way to get connected to their own state or territory council. I mean,
okay.
but the
Because
reality is, and I'm just going to be honest with you, me and my honesty. Um, Not every council has a website.
okay,
So they're not going to link to a Facebook page. I mean, because we do have councils that the state says, no, you can't have your own website. But and then they, for whatever reason, did not activate a state sponsored website like Massachusetts and Illinois and Kentucky, but where you have your boilerplate things that you can do. Um, so it's an interesting thing, and I'm not sure there's full understanding at the federal level about the wide variety and how we interface. Like, it's not like every council can go buy their own website, and that may be the current
all right.
understanding.
And do you? Okay, thank you. And do you? Would it also, or are there plans to work it in reverse, where if you clicked on Kentucky's website, for example, you would get a feed from ACL with news or
Oh, that's
current.
an
Uh,
interesting. Oh, I like that,
I
Johnny.
kind of,
That's
well,
cool.
I'm not advocating for it. I'm just saying,
Oh,
do
okay.
it. No, when I first heard the commissioner, because she mentioned that when she came to Kentucky,
Yeah.
uh, and so that's kind of what I thought she meant, but I really wasn't sure. She really didn't go into any kind of detail, but that's kind of, I just want to ask about that. So
Yeah, so
be, to
that's
show
an
the connection
interesting
between
item.
councils and ACL, and like if you
Yep.
had for example, grant opportunities
Yeah.
that just hit, and then if you happen to be visiting our website and you would see that and you could see this new, you know,
Yeah.
NOFA or funding announcement, just as an example. So I was just curious about
No,
what if you
yeah,
knew what she meant when she talks about that
no, it's
connection,
very
or
vague. It's very
okay,
vague. And I just know from my seat in on this big bus we're all on, I just know that there's, at different times people just look at council websites, and, it's not it's just to get a feel for what kind of information do we need to be pushing down to councils. Some of you have just tremendous things on your website, and you work hard on it. Sometimes you might have a staff person that's really interested in that, and honestly, it comes down to having available labor hours to get it done, and who's responsible for it. But the reality is, for a lot of you, is that someone at an agency is trying to get your updates in, and it might fall off their radar screen. So, it's always a dance. But I do like that idea. Um, I don't think they could require councils to put a feed loop to ACL on your websites. I think that would be almost bordering on that. There's a clause in the DD Act about state operations, and they can't interfere with state operations. So I just don't know about
Yeah.
that. I mean,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you
I
chose to
wasn't.
put a link on your website where people, it wouldn't be a feed, they would have to click and then go to the ACL website.
Yeah.
Or
Just
you
be an
could do,
active link.
yeah, I think that,
Okay.
we tend to do that. We promote how to subscribe to their news alerts and um, their announcements, where a lot of what you're talking about, like funding announcements, come through. Get it if you're subscribed.
Yeah.
But again, when we talk about content that's easy for people, I mean, I could see a citizen going, well, why do I need to know about what's happening up there? But a provider or another person looking for grant dollars might really be interested in it. So,
True.
yeah,
Okay. Thank you.
cool. Yeah, see, I don't, I just, I mean, I look at the ACL website a lot. It's not super content friendly. I mean, it's hard to get around in there. I always have to, I don't get there in 3 clicks like they're suggesting for councils. I have to really hunt and peck and try to remember. I have a page of notes that tells me where I can go. And that's, I can see how people get frustrated. Oh, Abby's asking, what are your strategies for maintaining regular website updates? So do you have dedicated staff, or is it just part of a staff member's responsibility? How do you guys get your website updated? David?
Yeah, it's a combination of both of those things. So we have like an IT analyst who helps us, with our tech needs, and then we also have some staff members who like partially have website updates as part of their responsibilities. And so we have a couple things that like allows them to do that. So they meet for a weekly huddle to review any requests coming in from staff for updates to our website. If we're trying to change language or change add a new page for a new event, something like that. So yeah, it's a combination of those staff members, them meeting regularly, and then we have like an internal email where if staff or leadership wants something to be updated, they send those requests to those call them the webmasters, and they'll go ahead and make updates to the website, and again at a weekly cadence at least, if not sometimes more
Okay,
often, if news
cool.
be updated.
Yeah, yeah. Nicole in Kentucky says, and she's a staff member, it's part of her responsibility. She goes through a contractor to make design changes, but she does wording and like, what we're talking about, like your who we are, what we do. And then Val is the executive director in South Carolina, and she makes the request for changes. Anita in Virginia, Anita, are you staff of Virginia?
Yes, I am. I'm communications staff.
Communications. I knew Jason told me you were coming. Thank you for being here. So they have a communication staff. It's part of her responsibilities. And then they also have a contract with a web developer. And of course, you guys are using WordPress. I agree. I believe it is fairly easy as long as you have an exceptional web developer who will teach you how to do it. That's what ours does. We we have a training for the TA training staff because we need to understand what we're doing. Does that give you a little bit of idea, Abby?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's really helpful. I was just
Okay.
kind of how other people are doing it. We've got a staff of 8, and so sometimes website is not a top priority.
I totally understand. Yeah. Yeah, it is hard to prioritize everything, but that which is not prioritized never gets done. But if this is your hub for your public to get to you, it's a good argument to make it a priority. In Arkansas, staff member responsibility. So ASEA is council staff, and she can get help from the DSA IT people. And New Jersey, they have a communications department. So the larger funded councils, of course, will have more resources. I'm going to thank our interpreters for being here. They are at their 1 hour mark. If any of you want to hang out past the interpreters being here, you are more than welcome to stay on. But thank you, interpreters, for being here.